Tonight, we confront a question as old as the American Republic, yet as urgent as a heartbeat on a battlefield. Who has the power to send a child to war? Is it a single person in a high office, or is it the people, through their representatives, after a public debate? A mother at a Christmas Eve mass, a senator on the floor, and a list of nations from Venezuela to Greenland. The lines of authority are blurring, and the stakes are nothing less than the lives of our sons and daughters. In the last 72 hours, the debate over the authority to wage war has moved from the abstract pages of constitutional law to the very real concerns of military families. It is a simple proposition, but one that carries the weight of every military deployment in the history of the United States. This thing, as we are told, is really simple.
This thing is really simple. Somebody came up to me at Mass on Christmas Eve who's got a kid in the Army Rangers and said, "Don't let him send my kid into war without a debate or vote in Congress." And that's what this is about. The framers of our Constitution made the judgment that it was pretty unusual at the time.
It started with a conversation on Christmas Eve, a time of peace, where a citizen approached a lawmaker at Mass. This citizen had a child in the Army Rangers. The plea was direct. Do not let the president send my kid into war without a debate or a vote in Congress. That is the core question that has now landed on the floor of the United States Senate. It is a question about whether one person should have the power to initiate a conflict. The human cost of this decision is not measured in policy papers, but in the lives of the sons and daughters who may be committed to military action. The question is whether the American public deserves to see their leaders debate these life and death decisions in public before the commitment is made. The shift we are seeing is a pushback against a president who wants to make Congress irrelevant on the most consequential decision a nation can make. We are looking at the United States Senate, where a specific resolution is now the center of gravity. The time frame is immediate. The debate is scheduled for tomorrow and Thursday. This is not a broad, sweeping change to all foreign policy, but a very specific intervention regarding Venezuela. The operational detail is clear. This resolution is designed to say no war without the Congress, specifically in the context of Venezuelan intervention.
Well, Senator, along those lines, your resolution, I just want to note for people, is different than the 1973 War Powers Resolution, which is a statutory law that speaks about Congress's authority here. Your resolution is very specific to Venezuela. And you just mentioned many of the other places that the president has telegraphed, I'm just going to say, his strategy on what he would like to do next. This resolution, though, doesn't cover those other places. So
the conditions for civilians and military families are defined by uncertainty. The president has telegraphed a strategy that involves many locations, but the current legislative focus is narrowed to one. We see a situation where the administration is accused of wanting to use the military as a palace guard rather than a national defense force.
President Trump wants to make Congress irrelevant on spending decisions, on nominations, on a whole series of things, but especially he wants to make us irrelevant about the use of our sons and daughters in war. And he wants to be able to use them as a palace guard and have them do military actions against Iran or Nigeria or Venezuela, or I guess coming up, Cuba or Greenland or Colombia or Mexico.
The time frame for this specific legislative action is tight, with the Senate expected to complete this debate within the next 48 hours. The path forward is divided by a single constitutional principle. If the president continues to seek the power to initiate war on his own, then Congress becomes irrelevant on spending, nominations, and the use of the military. If the current trend of bypassing public debate continues, then the sons and daughters of the American public could be used for military actions against Iran, Nigeria, Venezuela, Cuba, Greenland, Colombia, or Mexico without a single vote being cast by their representatives. However, if the strategy of these resolutions changes the balance of power, then we will see a series of specific debates for each potential conflict zone. If Congress asserts its authority now, then the initiation of war remains a collective decision as intended by the framers. If the Republicans who voted for the amendment last week stick with their position, then the president will be told clearly that he cannot act alone. If the status quo changes, then the initiation of war will once again require a public debate and a vote. Our understanding of this legislative battle comes from Senator Tim Kaine, who is currently defending the War Powers Resolution to ensure no war is started without the consent of Congress. The core system failure we are witnessing is the erosion of the constitutional requirement for the initiation of war. This is a breakdown of the fundamental balance of power. The framers of the Constitution decided that the initiation of war was too big a decision for one person. Even George Washington, while serving as president, understood that this power belonged to Congress. The system is designed so that once a war is initiated by Congress, the president then serves as the sole commander-in-chief. The failure occurs when the president wants to make Congress irrelevant to this process. By attempting to use military forces as a palace guard for actions in places like Iran, Nigeria, or Venezuela, the executive branch is bypassing the public debate that the American people deserve. This is not just a policy disagreement, it is a failure to follow the basic proposition that the use of our sons and daughters in military action must be a shared responsibility. The resolution currently on the floor is a direct response to this system failure, attempting to restore the statutory and constitutional guardrails that have been telegraphed as being at risk. To understand the depth of this failure, we must define the terms at play. The initiation of war is the legal authority to start a conflict, which the Constitution grants to Congress. The commander-in-chief role is the authority to lead that war once it has begun. The biggest bottleneck in fixing this system is the funny position or weird position that many senators find themselves in. They may believe the president lacks authority for war in one country like country X, but might believe there is authority for country Y. This creates a legislative hurdle where a single broad resolution might fail, which is why the current strategy is to file separate resolutions for different nations. The scale of the gap between the executive branch and the legislature is massive. The president's strategy, as telegraphed, includes potential actions across a wide geography, from Mexico and Colombia to Greenland and Denmark. The risk to civilians, specifically the military families whose sons and daughters are at the tip of the spear, is that they may be committed to these conflicts without the public debate Kaine argues they deserve. Who can change it? The Senate and the House must stand up for the proposition that war requires a vote. The Republicans who voted for the amendment last week hold the key to whether this resolution succeeds. We must be clear about what is at stake when we talk about the initiation of war. The framers of the American Constitution were not making a suggestion. They were establishing a safeguard against the very human tendency toward unilateral power. They looked at history and decided that the decision to send a nation to war was too monumental, too heavy, and too consequential to be left to the judgment of a single individual. Whether that person is George Washington or any president who followed, the principle remains the same. To bypass Congress is not just a legal maneuver. It is a dismissal of the public's right to participate in the most solemn decision a government can make. The moral requirement of a democracy is that the people, through their representatives, must have a say before their children are sent into harm's way. In the next 72 hours, we will see if the Senate can maintain its resolve. The debate on the Venezuela resolution will conclude, and the vote will reveal if the coalition that formed last week still holds. This will be the first test of whether the no war without the Congress principle can be codified for a specific modern conflict. The Senate will likely complete this debate by Thursday, providing a definitive answer on the administration's authority regarding Venezuela. Looking further ahead into the next 2 to 6 weeks, the landscape of this struggle will expand. We are told to expect a series of resolutions to be filed. These will not be limited to South America. We will see specific legislative battles regarding potential military actions in Cuba, Greenland, Denmark, Iran, Nigeria, Colombia, and Mexico. Each of these will force a new debate, ensuring that the weird position of senators is navigated one country at a time. The coming weeks will determine determine if the 1973 War Powers Resolution spirit can be successfully applied to the telegraphed strategies of the current administration. If the power to initiate war remains the sole province of the executive, then the constitutional role of the people's representatives will have effectively ceased to exist. The depth of this conversation requires us to look closer at the words of Senator Tim Kaine. When he speaks of a simple proposition, he is reaching back to the foundations of the American state. Let's examine the initiation of war. It is a phrase that carries the echoes of 1787. The framers were obsessed with the idea of checks and balances. They did not want a king. They did not want a sole commander-in-chief who could start a war on a whim or a personal grievance. Senator Kaine points out that even George Washington, the first president and the victorious general of the Revolution, did not believe he had the authority to declare war on his own. This is a historical fact that anchors the current debate. If the man who led the Continental Army believed the decision was too big for one person, then why is that principle being challenged now? The shift in power that Kaine describes is one where the president wants to make Congress irrelevant. This irrelevance extends beyond war. It touches on spending decisions and nominations. But it is the use of our sons and daughters that Kaine identifies as the most critical point of friction. Think about the list of countries mentioned: Iran, Nigeria, Venezuela, Cuba, Greenland, Denmark, Colombia, Mexico. This is not a random list. These are places where the president has telegraphed his strategy. When a president signals interest in military action in Greenland or Denmark, it raises questions that a resolution on Venezuela alone cannot answer. This is why the structure of the response is so specific. Simone, the interviewer, asks a vital question. Why not just amend the resolution to include all these places? Kaine's answer reveals the complex political reality of the Senate. He speaks of a funny position. Imagine a senator who believes the situation in Venezuela is a clear case of executive overreach, but who might feel differently about Iran or Mexico. If you put all those countries in one resolution, you create a weird position for that lawmaker. They might want to vote yes for one, but no for another. To avoid this, the strategy is to divide and conquer. One debate for Venezuela tomorrow and Thursday. Then, in the coming weeks, more resolutions for the others. This strategy ensures that the basic proposition is tested repeatedly. That proposition is that the American public deserves a public debate. It is about the sons and daughters. This phrase appears multiple times in Kaine's defense. It is a deliberate choice of words. It moves the conversation away from units or assets and places it squarely on the human cost of conflict. It reminds the listener that every deployment involves a family, like the one Kaine met at Mass on Christmas Eve. The parent of that Army Ranger wasn't asking for a specific foreign policy. They weren't taking a side on the politics of Venezuela or Iran. They were asking for a process. They were asking for the debate or vote that is promised by the Constitution. They were asking for their child's life to be treated with the gravity that the framers intended when they said war is a decision for the many, not the one. As we watch the Senate tomorrow and Thursday, the question won't just be about Venezuela. It will be about whether the 1973 War Powers Resolution, a statutory law, still has the teeth to constrain an executive who views the military as a palace guard. It will be about whether the initiation of war is a shared responsibility or a presidential prerogative. The telegraphed strategy of the president suggests a broad horizon of potential conflict. From the southern border with Mexico to the North Atlantic with Greenland and Denmark, the map of potential military action is expanding. In each of these cases, the same constitutional tension will arise. Each time, the Senate will have to decide if they are willing to be made irrelevant. Senator Kaine's resolution is a line in the sand. It is a specific, targeted attempt to reclaim the power of the legislature. He is hoping that the Republicans who stood with him last week will not waver. He is counting on the idea that the basic proposition is stronger than party loyalty. The idea that no war without the Congress is not a partisan slogan, but a foundational requirement for a functioning republic. We must also consider the coming weeks. If the Venezuela resolution passes, it sets a precedent. It creates a template for how Congress can respond to each of the president's telegraphed strategies. We will see resolutions for Cuba. We will see them for Iran. We will see them for Nigeria. This is the right strategy, according to Kaine, to ensure that the debate remains focused and that senators are not forced into that weird position. But what if it fails? What if the debate on Thursday ends without a clear statement of congressional authority? Then the system failure is complete. The president remains the sole command-in-chief, not just in the execution of war, but in the initiation of it. The palace guard becomes the new reality for the American military. The sons and daughters of the public are committed to actions in Colombia or Greenland, based on a presidential say-so rather than a public vote. The scale of the gap between the framers' intent and this potential reality is what Kaine is trying to bridge. He is using the 1973 War Powers Resolution as a reference point, but he is carving out a new path with these country-specific resolutions. It is a tactical shift designed to meet a specific moment in American history where the executive's ambitions are seen as bypassing the legislative branch. The moral clarity here is found in the simplicity of the request: a debate, a vote, a public accounting of the reasons for war. This is what the parent of the Army Ranger asked for. This is what the framers intended. This is what the Senate is tasked with providing tomorrow and Thursday. As we look toward the next 72 hours, the focus is on the Senate floor. The eyes of military families will be on their representatives. They will be looking for a sign that their sons and daughters are not merely tools for a palace guard, but participants in a national defense that is governed by the rule of law and the consent of the people. The consequence of this vote will be felt far beyond the borders of Venezuela. It will be felt in every country on the president's list and in every home that holds a child in uniform. Let us remember the words of Senator Kaine. The American public deserve to see the Senate and the House debate this in public before we commit our sons and daughters into military reaction. That is the standard. That is the goal. And in the coming weeks, we will see if that goal can be achieved one resolution at a time. The debate on Venezuela is just the beginning. It is a test case for a larger struggle over the soul of the American government's power to wage war. If Congress cannot assert itself here on a simple proposition, then the telegraphed strategies for Iran, Nigeria, and beyond may proceed without the public ever having a voice. We will follow this debate as it unfolds tomorrow. We will watch for the resolutions that follow in the coming weeks, and we will continue to ask the question that was asked on Christmas Eve: who decides? The answer to that question will define the next 72 hours and the next 6 weeks. It will define the relationship between the president and the Congress. And most importantly, it will define the future for the sons and daughters who stand ready to serve, waiting to see if their sacrifice will be preceded by the debate the Constitution demands. In the coming weeks, the filing of resolutions for Cuba, Greenland, Denmark, Iran, Nigeria, Colombia, and Mexico will keep this issue at the forefront. There will be no escaping the fundamental question of authority. The weird position of the Senate will be tested again and again, and the palace guard concept will be measured against the no war without the Congress principle. Senator Kaine is standing on the proposition that the initiation of war is for Congress. He is standing with the framers and with George Washington. He is standing with the parent at the Christmas Eve Mass. Tomorrow and Thursday, we will see who stands with him. We will see if the Senate chooses to be relevant or if it allows itself to be made irrelevant in the face of executive power. The resolution is specific to Venezuela, but the principle is universal. It is about the rule of law. It is about the human cost of war. It is about the sons and daughters. It is about ensuring that no one person has the power to send a child into conflict without a public debate and a vote. The coming weeks will be a period of intense legislative activity. The telegraphed strategies will be met with a series of resolutions. The Senate will complete its debate on Venezuela, but the larger battle for war powers is only just beginning. As Senator Kaine has said, this thing is really simple. It is about whether we follow the Constitution. It is about whether we respect the lives of those we send to war. It is about no war without the Congress. Tonight, the focus remains on that simple proposition. Tomorrow, the focus shifts to the Senate floor. And in the coming weeks, the focus will spread to every corner of the globe where the president has telegraphed a strategy of military action. The American public deserves a debate. The sons and daughters of this nation deserve a vote. And the Constitution demands that the initiation of war remains a decision for the many, not the one. We will stay with this story as the debate continues tomorrow and Thursday. We will bring you the results of the vote and the news of the resolutions that are filed in the coming weeks. We will continue to ask the questions that matter to the families of those in uniform. Senator Tim Kaine's fight for the War Powers Resolution is a fight for the heart of the American system. It is a fight to ensure that Congress is never made irrelevant when it comes to the use of military force. It is a fight for the sons and daughters. The next 72 hours will tell us much about the current state of that fight. The next 6 weeks will tell us even more. But the core principle will remain the same: no war without the Congress. This is the message being sent to the president. This is the message being sent to the American public. And this is the message that will echo through the halls of the Senate as the debate begins tomorrow. The stakes are high. The geography is broad. But the question is simple. Does the president have the legal authority to go to war on his own? Senator Kaine and his colleagues are preparing to say no. They are preparing to stand up for the basic proposition that war requires a public debate and a vote. They are preparing to ensure that the initiation of war remains where the framers placed it, in the hands of the people's representatives in Congress. The Senate will complete its debate. The resolutions will be filed, the telegraphed strategies will be challenged, and the sons and daughters will hopefully be protected by the public debate they deserve. This is the task at hand. This is the struggle for the War Powers Resolution. This is the story of a system failure being addressed, one resolution at a time. We will be there to cover it. We will be there to ask the hard questions, and we will be there to remind the nation of what is at stake: the lives of its children and the integrity of its Constitution. Senator Kaine's resolution on Venezuela is the first step. The resolutions for Cuba, Greenland, Iran, and the others are the next. The goal is clear: to restore the balance of power and to ensure that no war is started without the consent of the governed. As we head into the debate tomorrow, let us remember the parent at the Christmas Eve Mass. Let us remember the Army Ranger. And let us remember that in a democracy, the decision for war is too big for any one person. The Senate debate begins tomorrow. The future of American war powers hangs in the balance. We will be watching. The telegraphed strategy of the administration has met the constitutional resolve of the Senate. The next few days will determine which one prevails. The next few weeks will show us how far that resolve extends. No war without the Congress. It is a simple phrase, but it is the foundation of the American Republic's approach to conflict. Senator Tim Kaine is fighting to keep that foundation solid. Tomorrow and Thursday, the Senate will speak. In the coming weeks, the resolutions will follow, and the American public will finally get the debate they deserve. We will continue to report on this essential struggle for authority and accountability. We will keep the focus on the human cost and the constitutional requirement. This is the story of our time. This is the story of the War Powers Resolution. Good night.